So we should be talking while we should be talking while it goes live, shouldn't we?
Yeah, and then
not eating biscuits
rather than taking notes and eating biscuits.
It's okay to eat biscuits.
Biscuit of champions.
Everything
about biscuits.
Have you seen the book about biscuits?
What, a nice cup of tea and a biscuit?
Yeah.
No, I've seen the book. I think I bought the book for somebody. I've not actually looked through it.
I remember listening to an interview with the writer and like the way he ranks biscuits. Like Hobnob is like your beginner biscuit because it for dunking in tea because it takes ages for it to kind of dissolve, whereas rich tea is for pros only.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a game called it's now called Shall I Be Mother, which is with Gibson's at the moment. They're looking at it. But it was called the Biscuit Game, open brackets, not that one, close brackets, which is about dunking biscuits. It's about basically it's a ladder climbing game. So you're playing biscuit cards out with numbers on them, and then you're trying not to get over a certain number, which is the capacity of the teacup. Right. So if you go over the number or equal it, then basically your biscuit's falling into the tea, and everybody around you says, "No, we're not touching that. It's your cup of tea." So then you get points. So it's having the fewest points at the end of the game. But you're playing these biscuits, and there are things that aren't biscuits. They're pretend biscuits, like imaginary meringue and salt and vinegar crisp and stuff like that. So
I hope you have like the kind of score thing, which is like almost like looking down on a cup of tea with like the points floating in it.
We just keep. Well, you don't need it because you just take the cup that you've left your biscuit bits in, and then you just add them up at the end of the game, at the end of the round.
Okay,
it's a good laugh.
It's a laugh, innit?
And is there a solo variant for that?
No, I've only come to solo games very recently.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute because I've just done all of the button pushing that's required.
You told everyone.
Told everyone.
It's like you went out the front door and just shouted.
We might get more people watching that way. Oh yeah, come on in.
So have you printed out Aleph Null yet, then, young Michael?
Not yet, but
have you looked at it even?
I have. Yeah. I've read through the rules. I've read through the cards. I just need to make sure that I put this into my printer, and then I'll be able to print it out. It'll be all good.
Sweet.
It's all good. All right, let's do this thing. And in 3, 2, 1. Hello, lovely people. It's just gone 7 o'clock in the UK on Wednesday. Looking for the date desperately on my screen, 26th of August. But of course, time means nothing and death is inevitable. It is Wednesday, and this is not Team Talk. Rebranded, baby. There's no StreamYard logo up in the top right corner of the screen. We've paid money. We're being professional. This is the newly renamed and reborn Hub Games Hangout. So there you go.
Now, in fairness, we're kind of like transitioning over because we haven't got all the branding done. But we had especially. It was like we had Uncle Tony coming over to visit. We kind of did as much as we could.
It's like desperately scurrying around the house trying to tidy things up, like shoving books underneath the couch cushions and. A cursory wipe down of the visible surfaces. Oh God, what's he doing? Oh yeah, branded. Nice. That's well done. Branding.
I thought you were going to say, "Help me! They're holding me hostage."
So yeah, as of now, every week is going to be the Hub Games Hangout, and we are going to be doing a lot more video stuff as well. Keep an eye out. We'll probably have a lot of it sorted for next week, so we'll tell you about a lot more of it then. But yes, we do have a guest, her ladyship, Lady Honey Blunt, before you're there. Do you want to explain the name, Tony? You explained it to us anyway. But...
Yeah, I'm still he, him, but it's an anagram of my name. From many years ago, we did a series of Christmas presents with anagramized family members' names, and mine was Lady Honey Blunt. I didn't know it at the time. I just did everyone else's, but somebody did it for me. So I got a poem and a limerick to do with Lady Honey Blunt. So,
we have some mockery from sometime host Erin, who loves the branding. I'm wearing a badge. No, it's that side. There you go.
Yeah.
Nearly wore a t-shirt. Who knows? There you go. And as always, hi to number one fan Yoss and number one volunteer Dan Knight.
Dan Knight.
King
I
of,
approve.
I have to ask.
I approve of the word huzzah. Actually, it's not used enough. Huzzah is a fantastic word.
It's a very Dan word as well, which is good. Anyway, Rory, you want to say something about Dan?
Yeah, so Dan, you might be interested to hear that Ashes has had a reboot.
Oh no.
So you'll be able to play, and we can get together online and play as well. But we'll schedule that separately
sometime down the line.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us talk about things and stuff. We should probably talk about UK Games Expo this past weekend.
Well,
because it was an event. Or do we have to introduce Tony?
Well, just give the overview of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, we're going to talk about Tony. There you go. Second of all, we're going to talk about UK Games Expo and its online variant from this past weekend, the Virtually Expo. And last but not least, the main focus is going to be on solo gaming. Because A, it's a thing that Rory really likes. B, it's a thing that Tony has dipped his toes into the water for a little bit. And C, it's a thing that I can barely stick. So we're going to see how it goes with a little discussion.
Yeah, but I know you're a closet solo gamer, Michael. Oh no, the last game of Marble Champions was actually a group game. Sorry, I take it back.
I have played Marble Champions solo, though. I will admit that. I will admit for my shame. But actually, yeah, we should do what we normally do, which is have anybody been playing anything at all? Tony, you're the guest. Have you been playing anything in these dark times?
Actually, I'm wondering. There's a whining sound coming from somewhere. You're not picking it up, are you? It's
very faint. Don't worry about it.
All right. If we've had problems with our system, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Okay. Well, I've been dipping my toe in the online stuff, things like Board Game Arena and Yucata and stuff. But I'm not finding it immensely satisfying. I am missing the banter. The Skype banter is not quite a replacement for the in-person belly-grabbing guffaws that we're used to at the Ross and Y Board Gamers. The best board game club in the world, I think you'll find. I have played a few things with the family. Not many things. I have played a lot of solo games because I'm playtesting a solo game at the moment. So I tend to resort to that every now and again, usually when a meeting's going on rather too long on Teams. And so I can switch off and summon a couple of demons while they just hang on about.
You don't want to admit that. They might watch this eventually. Oh,
they know. So it's all about deliverables, Michael. If you do what you're supposed to do, then, everyone's allowed. I mean, I actually ran out of a Teams meeting on Monday because I got food poisoning from a dodgy omelette that I had for a mid-morning breakfast thing. And I was sat and I was like, and I'm trying to describe this system going live. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go. And then literally within 10 seconds, I'm hewing the omelette. So apologies for the imagery, but it was a sudden thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank God for the lockdown. That's what I said.
What a great opening for our show.
Yeah, what an evocative image.
Can't have enough.
Uncle Tony's Dodgy Omelette sounds like a 1970s prog album.
I was going to say that you'd left and no one had noticed. Like it took half an hour for them to go, oh, where's Tony gone?
Yeah, that's the usual. Actually, no, I got another story, actually. Eston, about 6-7 years ago, we used to go to a Chinese restaurant.
This is what it's going to be like, by the way, everyone. Just diversions aplenty.
But we went to this restaurant. We go there every year. All you can eat for €20, whatever it was, and they give you a free glass of green weirdness to drink as well.
Oh, is it the vegan place?
We all sat down. It's the one above the Young Hotel.
Okay.
And we went. It got our tables, and I said, I just need to nip to the loo. So I nipped to the loo. The urinal was occupied, so I went into the cubicle, locked the door, had a pee, tried to get out, couldn't get out. The door wouldn't open, and I was stuck in this thing for, it turned out, 35 minutes in the end. The guy from the kitchen came in. I said, can you get me out of here? He said, no, speak English. So he went out, brought the chef in. The chef came in, he said, open the door. I said, I can't open the door. It just won't open. So he gave me a screwdriver, and I couldn't get the screws off. He took the screwdriver and pulled the lock off the door. This is 35 minutes after I'd gone into the loo. So I went back to my table where the Pauls and all their friends were sitting and all our pals were sitting. Nobody said, "Where have you been, Tony?" They just assumed I was having an enormous comfort break. Nobody said, "What happened to you?" 35 minutes. The thing is, I went back there the year before last and the door lock is still broken.
Well, I have to say that was probably a very British thing where like they just didn't want to bring anything up because there's no polite way to kind of broach that subject. You know,
No,
how was it, Tony?
care.
How did you know?
They just didn't care.
To be honest, they were probably glad of the silence.
Yeah. I can see that you're sympathizing very much with
I think that kind of conversation is like the price of a great creative mind. It's like making those connections all the time, 24/7.
Just like those synapses firing off left, right, and centre, just linking to the weirdest places.
The report for that is on my blog somewhere. If you go back to like 2014 or something, around Essen, I do sort of blow by blow Essen documentaries of my time there. So it is there, and there's a lovely photograph of the knackered door and the story. Anyway, what were we talking about? I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's our UK. Thank you for joining us for our Coco at the UK Games Expo.
That's okay.
Because our time is used up.
Rory, have you been playing anything?
So I actually was playing Ashes the other night.
Cool.
So we're kind of digging back through a lot of the expansion decks that came out in preparation for the Ashes Reborn. So we're just playing with the straight decks, and it's a really good game. Like, I'm really glad that it's getting the attention I think it deserves. And then I've also been assembling and painting figures and buildings now for Test of Honor.
2.
Yes.
That page will be full by the end of this episode.
So setting up, hopefully, to play Test of Honor with Aaron at some point, and also friend Stephanos. I think reading the rules, Test of Honor has some really neat mechanics in it, so I'm kind of wanting to play them, and it's already kind of like sparking ideas for some things for future games as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I really like the cinematic concept behind the game, and just a few miniatures. And if it had solo rules, that would be awesome, because I could just play with my little metal figures all on my own.
Little metal figures sounds like a good name for a show.
That reminds me of a story about Meccano. Somebody referred to
stop.
Yeah, you've heard that story, haven't you? Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. Yeah.
What have I been playing?
You, Michael?
Not a lot. We've got a game, an actual like interactive human game night planned for tomorrow, which is nice. Where there, yes, will be more Marvel champions, but we're going to get High Rise to the table for the first time as well, nice. From Gil Hover. And I've got I got all the. Okay, I love Gil's stuff. I think he is a fantastic designer. He might be one of my top designers. So I went all in and bought like all the fancy bits. You know, present company accepted. I got all the fancy bits.
It took a while for that to drop.
All the wooden bases and everything, and like the extra cart and the fancy materials and things. So I'm looking forward to that hitting the table tomorrow. Irish Gauge as well, because I'm excited for that. But yeah, I have been doing some solo stuff. I've been playing this under orders from Rory. So this is Isla and Something Shiny. It's a solo adventure game. Which ain't out yet, but they were kind enough to send us the chapter 2. So each chapter is broken up into like a deck of cards, and the first one is like, you know, chapter 0 is the tutorial that a lot of people got to try at Essen last year, for example. And then chapter 1 is sort of like the first bit of the adventure. Chapter 2 sends you off into the world of work, and it's sort of like, hey, you've been traveling, happy, and all of a sudden it's just like, Christ, I'm a grown-up now. Well,
I don't know how much you're meant to be saying. We were kindly sent an early kind of preview copy. It was successfully funded on Kickstarter last month. So yeah, some, again, really nice, I think, system of that kind of looping day.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
It is really good. Oh, and I've also been reading through this Tartarus Gate, which was on Kickstarter a little while ago. It's from the nice folks at Rebellion, the one and only Duncan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's that old 80s vibe of a role-playing game in a magazine.
Do you remember when 2000 AD did that?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
I've got it upstairs somewhere, actually. I've got my first 10 years of 2000 ADs in very special packaging, all in individual, comic.
Oh, yeah.
Like Mylar bags.
What was the weekly, was it a weekly or monthly comic? Was it the Dice Man?
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, 2000 AD Dice Man, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like...
There was a Slaughter one and a Red one.
Yeah, Slaughter was done on its own in the comic, in 2000 AD as an adventure one. But then I think Dice Man was like the standalone comic.
Yeah, they did like a spin-off.
Yeah.
It didn't last for long, did it?
No.
About 3 issues, I think. Was something like
I think they probably realized how much work was involved in
testing. We don't do testing. This is the 80s, my friends. Yeah, do you know, it's one of those things that I would love to see come back. It's like it's perfect for like, let's do a hardcover version of it on Kickstarter, and like people of a certain age, hello, us three, would all be like there on day one going, yes, please, thank you very much. I'd like that.
Thank you. I'll have it through the post immediately.
Duncan will jump onto the feed and go, would you? Well, you're talking about printed publications. I'm going to give a shout out to Senate. Yeah, really nice. I did an interview which will be appearing in it, I think in issue 4. But just finished issue 1, have issue 2 there, and pre-ordered issue 3. And I love the format. It's really interesting and beautifully laid out as well.
Makes me feel very intelligent when I read it, which is a first.
You want to be seen like, hey, look at me, I'm reading about board games, like in a cafe with your mask on. So we should probably, so that we have enough time to talk about solo games, we should probably talk about UK Games Expo.
Yeah, so that was
that experience.
Yeah, Virtually Expo. What was it? It was meant originally to take place in May?
June.
June?
In the May.
Yeah. But of course, with the world as it is, they pulled it, said we're going to do a virtual thing, and
they were going to do a live one.
Yeah. A live virtual.
It was meant to be live last weekend, and then they changed that.
And then they changed it, yeah. Because we had hotel issues, booking and rebooking and all sorts of stuff. It was horrific. But yeah, so they are. I mean, they're probably. I mean, given that they're the third biggest con, /4, depending on whether Origins does better than them or not. Biggest con in the world, and the first one of them to do something online, aren't they?
I mean, there was Gen Con a few weeks ago, but it was very much it was.
Well, okay, hang on. We have to give credit where it's due. There's, I think BGG Con did theirs, and Dice Tower did one together.
Yeah, so they did theirs
in May. Origins was cancelled, and then we had of the kind of, let's call them the international ones. Then there was Gen Con. And then there's been smaller like US events happening virtually, but it just, we're not really hearing about them. But I know I've spoken to people who have been attending virtual cons. They're just on a smaller scale.
So yeah, and we had our own one this weekend, and it was better than Gen Con. I enjoyed it a lot more than Gen Con. Yeah. And I've been trying to dissect it, and I've been talking to Rich Gain from Floodgate, from Hush Hush Projects, publishers of Fog of Love, about it as well, and trying to identify what worked. But before we get into it, Tony, you kind of like stumbled onto our booth on Saturday and hung out for a while. Yeah, so, tell us, what's your experience been?
Well, I started with the live feeds. I wanted the seminar stuff to see what was going on there, and there was nothing on anything when I logged in. There was just adverts rolling in the background. 2 of the 3 channels didn't have any schedules either for the Saturday. It was just it didn't show what was going on. And then I stumbled upon the Discord side of things. And in my previous experience with Discord, I've never really done anything on Discord. We tend to Skype with our local Ross and Y group.
Mm-hmm.
But then I stumbled upon you guys, and there were people you could see and that you could talk to. And for me, that was exactly like me dropping by the booth, as I would have done had we all been there in real life. And that's where I felt really comfortable. I really, really enjoyed just chewing the fat with peeps. And people were coming and going, and that was nice, joining the chat, hearing that I was hogging it, and then they buggered off again, and that was all fine. And I did the same with Surprise Stare, popped over to say hi to Alan, because Alan was basically sat with his laptop and waiting for people to say, hi, Alan, can I have a demo, please? So he was sat in the corner of his living room, which seemed to me to be completely soul-destroying and pointless.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had some very interesting discussions with Chris B from Cardboard Edison. I think we had a good old chinwag about online cons and that kind of stuff. And I think for me, the thing I miss about the real con is not so much the games or the sales bits of it or anything else. It's just not getting to speak to people or catch people's eye or wave to people as they walk past you on the way to something else, or and the closest that I got to that in this convention last weekend was just basically butting in on somebody else's live feed and just getting involved in whatever they were talking about. And I really loved that bit of it. But my one overriding disappointment was that it just seemed to be trying to create the geography of a physical convention, and really was paying a little bit of lip service to everything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things I just want to comment on. I want to give fair due to UK Games Expo. I think they did a brilliant job at given we're trying to figure out this whole thing out and how to make it work, and having to commit to something quite early and then get it developed. I think they did a really good job, because there was a couple of moments during the weekend where I felt bizarrely, I felt like I was at a con. I kind of joked about, going into the chat where Michael, you and Tony were chatting, and I was joking, going get back to work demoing the games, because it kind of had this vibe of the two of you were off in the corner nattering, and then someone came and it was Chris, I think, from Virtual Playtest, came up and he wanted to chat to me about something, and I said, oh, well, let's go into this room and have a chat. So mentally, I was picturing our booth at UK Games Expo and me kind of walking over, and then seeing you, Tony, leaning up against the demo booth, chatting away when Michael should have been demoing. So there were moments of that kind of interaction, and they definitely improved from my perspective on Gen Con, where everything was pre-booked, and it was discoverability was almost zero. There was little or no way to discover a new game, and the mental load required to do it was really high because everything was pre-booked, which is fine, I think, when you're doing role-playing game sessions, not so much with games. So I think the UKGE did a good job in terms of the Discord and dropping by. It seems unplanned, but I think it worked well for attendees to be able to discover things. And Michael, I think we were talking then, the main thing really is to make it more about the visual discovery. For me, I would agree, Tony. I think more video is needed, in terms of on the booth. That there's times when the booth demoers are visually demoing and presenting. But yeah, but not sitting around waiting all day for someone to turn up. That's I think that's the hardest thing of being isolated on your own during a con.
Yeah.
Because you're not seeing the flow of people and the waves and the hellos that give you the energy to keep going. Sitting on your own.
It would have brought back the days of 2007 when I was trying to sell Scandaroon. my young daughter had come with me to Essen, and she was quite happy to go off and buy Haribo and play on the trampolines. Didn't have any interest in the board games. And at times I felt like I wanted to go as well. I just started eating loads of Haribo because there was no fun to be had on the Surprise Dare stand that year. But I think if you mentioned the Dice Tower BGG Virtual Con, this is an example. There's an example of their events pre-booking which Chris showed us on our little chat, and I linked it in my blog this week because not everything on there needed to be paid for, and you could pre-book, and everything you sort of signed up to appeared in a personal calendar for yourself. And, and perhaps I think after I got over my initial disappointment, because I wasn't disappointed with UKGE, I was just disappointed that I wasn't at a convention, and that just reminded me again that I'm not going to Germany in October, which makes me incredibly sad. And I was thinking, actually, the problem maybe is that people are thinking about how can we do it this year until we get back to normal next year. And I'm thinking that there are plenty of people who want to come to Expo or to Gen Con or to Essen who can never make it. But there is an opportunity with the technology that we've got to actually open up this kind of access as a permanent feature to the normal show. So you make it, you can wander the halls, find the hidden gems, all that kind of stuff, buy all the new releases and get the promos. But if you're watching from online and the exhibitors are provided with the facility to give their games to shoppers, personal shoppers who spend all their time in the show just buying games off people or simply crediting them to some accounting system and then shipping them off to them. So I could watch from Australia and go, I really like that demo, I want to buy that game. And then somebody in Essen is going to go and pick it up for them. And I, on Surprise Stare Stand, say, right, I am going to make sure that during my day, just like Bez and Paul Grogan did at UKGE, that my day has a very clear number of things that I will be doing. So I'll be showing a prototype of X at 10 o'clock. I will be doing a demo of Y at 11 o'clock. I'm just going to sit and talk with my mate from New Zealand because he's made it over to the show at 12 o'clock. And I make sure that I have live things happening. And some of the sort of the housekeeping things that you'd normally do, like the demos, perhaps you could push those to watch at your leisure, because there's no joy demoing the same thing in an online environment or a physical environment if there's other things that you could be doing and adding value to your brand or your personal appeal or whatever it is you need to do. So it'd be much better for me if I could show prototypes and talk about what I think about the latest games and have fun. And if somebody says, well, I'm not interested in that, Tony, I just want a demo of Cousins War or March of Progress, I could say, that's fine. Go over there. There's a really nice 10-minute video that covers the whole lot. You know, come back and talk to me about it afterwards if you want to. I'll answer some questions about the rules maybe. But allow people to see what it is about Essen and UKG that we love, which is people hanging over the counter having a chat. Fans, friends, fellow designers, fellow publishers, and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a very good and well put thing about what we're trying to get. Actually, all of the events that we've done over the year, from UK Games Expo backwards, and even actually, Rory, including stuff like that we've done with our own virtual world tour. There are positive elements that I'd like to take from all of those to combine into what I think would be like a great online convention. And I know that like a lot of the shows are planning, or at least considering having if we do get back to normal next year, they are considering having like an accompanying like online presence as well. But yeah, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be worth the person's time. It did sound a little bit like Avatar, what you were describing there, Tony. It's like, you are my virtual shopper and I will go and do this thing here.
No, I think I was just thinking, I made this comment at the weekend that when we first started exhibiting at Essen, there were prerequisites because that's the way they did things with stands. So you had to have flooring, you had to have wallpaper to protect the boards and so on. And that all went away because they grew up. They came out of the 90s into the 2000s. It seems ridiculous that we have all this technology. We've all, lots of people, millions of working people have spent the last 6 months talking to each other like this and working like this, that we can't carry this through to give people the next level of experience, be it at a games convention or at a motor show or a caravan show or the boat show. It just seems so retro to kind of just think this is a one and done when there's so much to be put forward.
So I'm going to throw in a kind of dissenting voice, like, and a couple of things. One, I'm...
Well, go ahead, Rob.
That's my point. Don't you agree, Michael?
Yeah, good point. Very, very well done.
was a quick point.
I mean, for me, board games are a very tactile experience. So and visual. So there's a benefit of being at a con where you're drawn to a lot of games by the visual. And I think that's one thing that we need to try and figure out how to bring out at the highest level of the interface or interaction for the cons. I was talking to somebody. It was Kieran from Cubicle 7, and he was saying he misses looking at other people's bags as they're passing, while you're demoing and seeing the game and going, oh yeah, I need to check out that game. Or like the number of times I've shouted across at someone, I went, like, what's that? Where did you get it? It's part of that kind of interaction between players or gamers, and that's a visual thing. So for me, trying to bring out more of the visual, like emphasizing the company less and emphasizing the games more.
Yeah, just a nice big page with just like the front cover of every game that's available.
I think
but the other,
it's more than
before,
that. I was going to say just very quickly, it's more than that. It's that thing that catches your peripheral vision as you walk by a stand. It's not necessarily the cover of the box. It might be one single piece. So you go, what was that? And then you get hooked in. And yes, you don't get that without the right presentation.
Yeah. I mean, and you can kind of get that, I think, by like carousel video and, or GIFs or something that might help. But the other thing is, I know you were saying you want to talk to people and see presentations. And I get that a lot of people want to talk at the virtual cons. Like, I think we've encountered that, Michael, with demoing with people. But also, a lot of people just want to play games with people and meet because they don't have the people to meet with, at home. And this gives them, like, the point of a con is it gives them a focus. It's like, okay, I am dedicating time to do this. So I think it's really important that we do keep the demos and the walk-up demos happening where people can discover that game. Because if they haven't booked it, it's a harder thing. Like, Gen Con was totally organized to the hilt. Like, there was no opportunity for a last-minute walk-up. So if we had spaces free, it was actually really hard to work around that. It was just like, okay, that's a dead slot because no one's going to book the game at this point. And I think it's trying to find that balance between booked tables and kind of walk up availability is important, because sometimes it just comes from, I think for us, like actually just being friendly when people arrived in Discord and going, hey, what games are you looking forward to play? Like, it wasn't a bot, it was us genuinely showing interest in that person and trying to help them find a game they like. And I would hope people kind of respond to that then, where they might have just bounced back off the Discord, but because you kind of snared them and they know there's a real person there, they can't just run away. Good old sales techniques, that I think we got a couple of people into games who might not have had that opportunity just out of shyness or being uncomfortable with the tech. So I think that aspect is really important as well. Just the kind of random fitting someone in for a table, like kind of going, oh, we need one more for this table. Do you want to jump in and join us? I think that's a part of the experience as well that I'd like to keep or not lose anyway in the virtual space.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the middle of setting up everything for Spiel Digital at the minute. So once I've had a bit of time to sort of dig into that and see what kind of things they're going to be presenting, it'll be interesting to see what they cherry picked from the previous events and what they're planning on introducing that is new. Like, I know they're planning like the heat map of the virtual hall, which will, will that be as useful as like, the BGG Hotness or the Spiel Direct Top 10? We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I think at our end, and we'll kind of wrap it up soon. I think, again, talking to Rich, bots will be one thing that I want to look at, how we use that to kind of support people coming to our kind of Discord booth, because essentially the Discord is our booth. It's not even the web page that they're hosting. It's really our booth. So, how do we maximize that experience when people come? I think organizing the channels, I've looked at some of the other exhibitors and there's definitely things to learn from others to kind of tidy up that experience. And I think then, like you said, programming events for the weekend, and the more kind of offbeat the event, or more unique that you can't get anywhere else, they're the ones to kind of push at the con. as well to get engagement.
I do like the idea of like the virtual 10-minute demo. I mean, because you could just make the video well in advance, and it's just like, okay, and if you've got questions, come back and see me. If you want to play it, we can do it.
But do you imagine at Essen, when the Fragor boys were there, God bless them, I don't know where they've gone, but the Fragor boys used to have a whiskey thing on the setup day. At the end of the Wednesday setup day, they have a whiskey do over on their stand. And everybody would be over there. Freedom and Freezer would be over there. All the major publishers would be over there. They're all sharing a whiskey with the boys. And last year I went to something organised by it was the French group in Hall 3, because I was working with last year for Alubari, and they had a big do, and there's all the French journalists, all the French publishers all together, all sharing wine and chatting, and being able to see some of that would be quite interesting as well. I mean, it would be quite intrusive if you're looking at something that's quite a sort of networky type thing, but I think seeing people cross-fertilizing from the stands without having to kind of physically travel across the city to get to one place could be quite interesting as well. So it is entirely feasible that virtually we could be sat, you could be chatting with Uwe Rosenberg and Richard Brees about workplace. You'd have a great lot of fun with Uwe because he doesn't speak much English, but perhaps you could get Alex to do the translation. That could be fun.
Okay, so here, let me see. I think we can do that. So you'll hear it first here. If we host a after show gathering on Zoom,
after show drinks,
yes, because you can kind of break out into rooms, isn't it, on Zoom, and have kind of chats. So we could have. And can you limit people to like have their mic off?
Not sure. We'll look into it.
Yeah. So we'll host an Essen after party, and not like, but like the way we'd play compact curling with the Finnish team Martinex as well, and meet up with people there. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. That's valuable from the kind of business category, because sometimes you get to talk to people who you wouldn't get to talk to during the day. I'm not sure how much interest people would generally have in being a fly on the wall of some of those.
Well, I tell you, the heavy cardboard meetup at Essen, good grief. Yeah, it is a wonder to behold, and I have made some. I'm going to name drop now, like a so and so, because I've gotten drunk on plenty of Guinness with Paolo Soledad and Nuno Santiero and Mario and Ulla Blenneman, and Gil Hovers turned up every now and again, and Edward Ulla. We just, that's something that you probably don't want to be showing, but a nice little bit of a chinny wag with peeps is lovely. But God, I'm missing Essen already this year. God, I'm not going to see these wonderful people.
Okay, let's change the subject quickly.
Well, before we zip
on your own.
Let's talk about sadness. But we jump into that. Jos said that he was really happy that it was all open and not scheduled. Didn't have time to look at on the Saturday evening, so I was able to jump in on Saturday morning. Started Days of Wonder, have a demo from Karina, where I think he played World of Warcraft, World of Warcraft, and then of course he came over and played Prismarina with you, Rory, which was all grand. Yeah. Also in the chat, the one, the only, Matthew Dunstan. Hey guys, it's three of my favorite people together.
Matt, I'm going to be hitting you up for a chat in the future.
Yeah. Also, you need to get better standards of favorite people, particularly that one down there. Anyway, now to our main topic. Let us discuss the wonderful world of solo gaming. All right, so I don't like it. Oh God, he's changed his name again. For me, solo gaming it's my iPad, and it's really old. But it's stuff like I will play against the AI on this, playing like, Agricola, Tony's favorite game. Potion Explosion, Patchwork, Inland Port, things like that. I will occasionally dive into the wonderful world of actual card games and board games with stuff like Sheppy and the occasional Marvel Champion solo, but it ain't my thing, gentlemen. And help?
Well, it doesn't have to be your main thing, which seems to be what you're protesting about. I know there is perhaps a little bit of elitism because the solo game community has been ignored for a great many years, and solo games on your table groups on BGG have done a fantastic job in nurturing solo gamers and making them feel not alone. Oddly enough, it's sort of a weird situation of that. But then, of course, the work that they've done, and through some of the developers, David Studley and apologies, the chap who did the solo mode for the Automa stuff for Scythe. Those guys have pretty much now made it essential for the big games to have solo modes. And that's quite an achievement. And it's not been for lack of work. They have worked really hard on this. Well, one of the angles is you can learn the rules on your own before you introduce a game to a group. A pure solo game, on the other hand, is people have been doing that for decades. Or lots of war games, all those little hex and counter things. They were pretty much solo games that you would just sort of program yourself. So
I mean, I will throw out a kind of a skeptical comment about the solo rules, especially in Kickstarter games. Like, I think they've become essential, and I'm the target for them. And I think sometimes it is a case of it allows someone to go, oh, well, if I back this for like X amount of money, at least I'll get to play it myself. Even if I don't get to play with others, because so many of us have, piles of shame of games that we've backed and never get to play. And I think sometimes the solo mode is just that like extra little hook that gets someone to part with their money because they can rationalize to themselves why they should get that thing. So that's like the negative.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, that's a selling thing because everybody wants them. All the big games have got solo modes, so everybody feels that they need to have them. I was told by Hanno Gurk at Lookout in 2012 when we were planning the release of Snowdonia. When he first saw it, he said, the two-player rules are terrible, and you really need to think about a solo mode for this game. And so he just spent the last 5 years dealing with Uwe Rosenberg games, which all came with solo modes. So back then, he wasn't saying that it's because they need to learn the rules to teach other people. It was that people like to play games on their own. And I think we probably need to leave in this discussion the multiplayer games that have solo modes and look at the games that are specifically designed for one person, because they are different to the multiplayer solo modes. I think they are two very distinct beasts.
Well, let us talk then, Tony. Let us talk of your first.
Lead off with the solo game has to be designed with the one person in mind. It's not to be an afterthought for a 3-player game that needs to be played with one person. And I think they're very different approaches to game design, as are 2-player games versus multiplayer games. The dynamic in a 2-player game is not the same as 2 players playing a 4-player game. So I think that's where we need to start. Is the solo game is about, it has to be designed with only one person involved, and that person's personality and capabilities mentally and everything else, where they are in life at that very moment in time, can all help to enhance that solo experience.
So Tony, you put Lux Aeterna, your solo game, out last year. What was the thinking behind it? Did you just want to, was it a test as a designer? Oh, I just want to make a solo game. Was there more of a self-challenge kind of vibe?
Well, it's neither of those things really. My game designs are across the board really. I don't really have a distinct line. I mean, I like trains, but then I'll do lots of different things with trains as a theme. So I've got, card games, board games, I've got paperclip railways. Totemo is completely different from everything else, and so on. I think with the solo game, it came from the theme, because I'm a huge 2001 Space Odyssey fan. I love the soundtrack. And when I was doing long drives to and from work, I would listen to it. And it's particularly effective listening to that music when it's dark and it's late at night and you're driving home from London. And I thought, this is so atmospheric. I would love to be in a situation thematically where I am alone in space. And I imagine this music playing and the tension rising, and I'm having to deal with things, and it has to be on my own. So it wasn't that I challenged myself to design a solo game. I just had an idea for a theme that I really wanted to see in the game. And the way of approaching it was to be alone. So I wanted everything in it to enhance the fact that I'm alone and I'm having to deal with this without anybody's help whatsoever. So there's nobody saying you should play that card, or between agreeing how we should approach any particular game. I was alone when I was listening to the music. I was alone when I was thinking about the theme, and it just kind of progressed from there.
So like I've played the game. I picked it up, and I love the theme and the artwork on the game. You know, and we've talked about this before. I think that the thing I struggle with, and it comes up a lot in certain solo games, is that as a way of challenging the player, you create stress for them. And I think it's the one reason why I don't play Lux Aeterna more, because of the kind of time aspect. I love everything else about it, like the artwork and the choices and everything. For me, when I sit down to play a game, that's not what I'm looking for, that timed aspect. But I know loads of people do in that. So I'm kind of curious, from a solo perspective, is that like, what are the requirements that you want to fit into a game when you're designing a solo game?
Well, there's two ways that Lux Aeterna could have gone. One is the stressful, you have to do something and you have a limited amount of time. So that will warp your decision making. You'll make the wrong decision and you'll come to regret it, which I really like, because it feels like you're living a movie experience. The other way is just to have no time at all, and plenty of people play it that way, and it just becomes a puzzle that you have to solve, and you play it most efficiently. But for me, the theme about a spaceship in peril and you in peril had to have that accompanying level. If the theme was something different, if it was about, you know, having an entire year to prepare for a flower show and I was trying to grow the best flowers, then that feels to me like I must juggle my resources, my gardeners, my soil quality, my water, my irrigate, whatever it is. That feels to me like a much more sedate theme, and therefore it feels like it ought to be more of a puzzle thing. So I keep coming back to the theme that drives the hearts of the games that I like to design. And in Lux, I wanted to reproduce the feeling of Dave Bowman alone on a ship with a hostile computer, a hostile environment, and unknown things coming his way. The only way to do that was to introduce the idea of the glitches, which is actually through Matt. Copious playtesting. Matt did a lot, and he kept winning too easily, and we had to come up with something to make it really hard for Matt.
Like, tie one hand behind your back.
Yeah, and I had the same situation with Aleph Null, the latest solo design, because Matthias Nage at Frosted Games is saying, well, I can win this game 40% of the time now. So for me, that's good. That's a good metric. But I can win it one game in 10, you know, and I designed the blooming thing. You know, he's really good at what he does, and he's really good at that kind of game. And it was still difficult for him. Yeah. So, but that's got a different kind of stress. And I think you probably won't like it. If you didn't like Lux and its time pressure, you'll find the decision-making in Aleph Null as stressful, because you can literally one wrong card and that's it. You are finished. So I don't. It's about that game's about summoning a demon from hell and surviving the experience. Again, thematically, this isn't supposed to be a take your time, have a smoke, have a drink, talk to your mates, think about it.
How big are your drinks?
Yeah, and you're playing solo. You don't have mates to talk to while you're playing.
Well, there's all the demons and the Tannists and everything else.
Yeah, you're talking about the voices in your head, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
That works. So Tony, you were kind enough to send over the files to me for Aleph Null, your forthcoming extravaganza into the world of solo. And I don't know, maybe it is because the theme and the look of, like, even the early versions of the cards that you sent over. Because I really like how you really throw yourself into making your prototypes look, they still feel evocative, they still feel really powerful. And I don't know, maybe because it is a thematic thing, but that is something I am looking forward to printing off and trying. Not because I've got anything wrong up here, but I like the idea of trying to summon a demon.
It's aspirational, Michael.
What other aspects, what other approaches to the solo game do you think that there are then? Because my little dabbling in this oeuvre has shown me the stressful element that's linked purely to theme. But what other in a pure solo game, what other things do you think are important to present to player?
Curses! You've turned the tables on me.
Well, I think one thing, like dopamine, you need that, like you need little successes, little things that make you go, yeah, okay, I've made an achievement.
There was just one thing I want to kind of celebrate with Lux Aeterna. Like, I love the kind of victory conditions. I think for me, playing a game that has very clear thematic victory conditions is really important if I'm playing solo. I've no real interest in playing just point scoring games. Like, can you beat your score or can you do higher? I like Sheppy just because it's funny. Like, the choices and the mating sheep and the what's the one, the meteor cards.
Yep.
It's that game is kind of concise enough that I can handle that. But a longer game where the objective is just point scoring, I have no real joy. I want to play through some kind of story in my head, like emergent story, in the time that I'm playing the game. And that's kind of the other point. I don't care if the game ends early or if I die, if it, excuse me, fits thematically within the story experience. And like Michael, in the case of what you're saying, the dopamine hit, I've seen in our upcoming game, Combo Clash, the combo scoring in that game gives you dopamine hits big time, like every single round. And that would make me think, how do you, like, I've been quite happy on Tabletopia as we've been testing the game, just playing that out and seeing what combos I create. It's like, it's not about winning. It's just like, oh, that was a really interesting combo. That was, interesting. And I think taking that mechanic and somehow moving it away from just point scoring into something else, I think would be really interesting to see, because it's giving you a little buzz every time. And that's kind of, I suppose, what you want when you're playing. If it's a 15-minute or 2-minute game, it's that one more aspect or go that kind of keeps you going through the play. So there's that's almost like the opposite of the stress inducing. It's like, it's just giving you a little like jolts of pleasure rather than jolts of stress.
The coming back for more is another key thing, because, and it's a bit like cooperative games in this in an odd sort of sense, in that the dopamine hits, yes, absolutely. If you get that pleasure from doing it, then that's great. It's a bit like playing Magic the Gathering online, where if you win because your deck is a perfect ramp, everything about it is great, you feel really happy and you want to play again. I think with the solo experience, I've lost my thread entirely. So back to you.
Okay.
Super skills. Well
you
done.
go looking for that. No, like I have, because I've been mulling over some solo games, and we're currently working on solo rules for like Prison Arena, which is a multiplayer game, but the concept of the game allows for you to kind of train on your own. And this was, that's part of the conversation, is I'm trying to keep it. The solo rules are coming after the game, right? So all of the components are in the box, and we're trying to look at what's there to create an interesting play experience that allows you to get better at the main game. Like, that's kind of the point, is like, you can play this on your own, learn some stuff, so that when you go into the arena to play against another player, you've kind of skilled up a little bit. But trying to, speaking to a friend, he had said, in playing Marvel Champions, he was like, I don't want to play against an Excel spreadsheet. I enjoy playing against another player that gives me that uncertainty. And that's kind of the challenge with the automata in Prison Arena, is how do you keep it dynamic and tune it so that it's not super punishing to players, but also not super easy, because it's like 40%, I think, is the target goal. Like, I enjoy playing Shadowrun Crossfire, but for me the success rate is like 20%, if even.
Actually, that's what I was going to bring up, was about the idea that it can't be solvable first time. If you play a game and you win it as a solo game first time, well, why bother picking it up again, doing something with it? So that progression, that development, and part of the dopamine hit is if you feel that you can achieve something after 3 attempts, that's where the joy comes into it.
Like for me, this is then another thing I kind of wanted to hit on. So I'm just kind of throwing everything out into the pot for conversation. For me, a big part of solo gaming is tied also to the setup time and the play time and the breakdown time. And so a lot of those big box Kickstarter games don't do it for me. I have a couple, like, and I think Myth is like my exception. I'll set that up and play. But even still, it's like if the games could just set up quicker, didn't use as many components or use them more efficiently. You're like the kid in the back of the class, Tony. Boydell!
I'm making up for it in my old age.
Yeah, well, that one is definitely not an anagram.
Give me 10 minutes.
Well, the nice thing is I can also change Tony's name.
Sorry, Michael, Rory was talking and you interrupted.
Yeah, rude.
Yeah. Fox, Boydell, detention.
See me off to school.
500 lines on why solo games are great. Go.
That's it. I will play Marvel Champion solo mode. I will play Marvel Champion solo mode.
I was just wondering whether you could play Ashes solo. Is that right?
No, but it's funny. Are you just going to reuse your graphics? Do you want to try, like, is that Ashes 3 or Ashes solo mode?
Yeah, I'll catch you a bit later on. Don't worry, I'll get you again.
Are you just tracking every time I say it?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
It's just kind of top of my mind at the moment.
Yeah, you should have another one that mentions Myth, to be honest, because it comes up every episode.
Well, yeah, it's
in the forefront of your mind.
Well, actually, I'm looking at Blackstone Fortress, right? Just to name something different that's a dungeon crawler. Like, that is closer in terms of like setup time and play. But for me as a gamer, I'm even looking for something like a little bit more compact as a solo game in terms of play time. So, because I'm factoring in like the setup time, the playing time, and the breaking down time of it.
I mean, you could be really reductive and suggest that a solo gamer could probably leave a complicated game set up overnight. And therefore, the setup time and takedown time is probably not that important.
But that setup time is still gaming time. Like, I mean, there's a whole other conversation about gaming, but I've done that a number of times where I'm setting something up going, or deck building. I'm like, I could just be playing something else, like, rather than spending all this time prepping around.
Yeah, but it's still part of the gaming experience, Rory.
Well, my friend Mr. Shep, who does a blog on BGG, The Tyranny of Small Decisions, he set up Spirit Island. He's just received Spirit Island and all the expansions and stuff. And he's playing through each of the different kind of personalities for the island. And he's got it set up in the corner of his room, and he's just playing through every single possible combination that he can. Because it's a pig to set up to start with, but then he's got a goal at the end of it. So I mean, it's a solo game, but it has chapters to it rather than just this is one game and it's basically the same thing. And you might see things in slightly different orders. Here, it's the same structure, but there are different puzzles within that structure. And that also lends the replayability. If you can give a developing story. Narrative plays an awful lot in your chats because narrative is very close to your heart. And I think it's really important. I think it's as equally important as the mechanisms that you put into the game. You might have the greatest mechanic in the world, but if there's nothing to tie me into the
decision making,
I might as well just be pushing wooden cubes around without any interest whatsoever.
Like the games that, for me, thematically help me with my decision making because they kind of, if I think narratively, it tells me, all right, this is how I should be behaving in this game. They're the games that I kind of really enjoy, and they make it easier to learn the game. So I think that is an important part of the gameplay experience. And yeah, I'd love that more in solo games. And I find maybe it's just like you're always looking for that solo game that's the perfect one, and I've never quite found it.
Well, Aleph Null for you then, Rory. Yeah. See how you cope with that.
So we have
Mike
a comment from Mike who says not everyone can give up space for a game set up full time, which is true. We come from a place of privilege where we've got our game table over in the corner or whatever, and it's a super useful thing to have. Hell, I would love to have a game set up permanently, but Steph needs to use the table when she's doing her work. The cats will jump up on it, and I don't want to see them eating half my copy of High Rise, that kind of thing. But yeah, it would be sort of like I don't know. Maybe I'd sort of like try more solo stuff, whether it's solo mode or he's gone again.
Well, I was going to suggest you turn on the light.
Yeah.
So I was going to say it's maybe I would play more solo stuff or try more solo modes for multiplayer games if I had the room for it, the space for it.
So I actually played. I picked it up in an amazing game cafe in Reno, whose name
The Glass Die.
The Glass Die, that's the one. I picked up Palm Island.
Oh yeah.
And that is quite. I really like what they're doing with it's an 18 card deck, resource kind of management game, and it's really neat. It plays in your hand. We actually tried playing it in a moving car, but we realized usability, it doesn't work for smaller hands. So my daughter, who's a teen, really struggled with holding the cards in the way that is recommended. And I was like, oh, that's an example of an adult male designing something, for their hand, but a younger player struggling with that. It's all those little hidden usability things. But that game is neat, and you can actually level up, so you gain new cards that you can add to your deck as you're playing, and then you can kind of put it away and store it for play later. So that's kind of worth looking at. But that's kind of my ideal thing is almost that compact game you can carry with you, take it out, progress a little bit, and then when you're done, put it away, mid-game or...
Actually, that was going to be my next question. What is, for you two, an ideal solo game? Whether it's from a component point of view, whether it's from a technical point of view or a thematic point of view, or all three combined.
Tony, do you want to go first?
Yeah. After the demons, Rory, what's your dream theme?
Yeah. I'd really like a solo game that makes me really care about what I'm doing in that game. Mm-hmm. That allows me some time to think. It's partly why I don't play Switch as much. I love some of the experiences on it, but there's something it does to my brain that I just get sucked into that space, into the smaller screen. Whereas when I'm playing a board game, the spatial aspect of it is quite important to my brain. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but seeing things laid out is different from watching it in a small screen.
It's sharp focus versus like you were talking about earlier,
yeah.
Tony, the peripheral, the stuff that's happening all around.
Yeah. So I think for me, something that has ideally some kind of narrative or arc that I care about. It doesn't have to be an epic story, but there's an arc within the game that I care about. That ideally I can play it within an hour to 90 minutes, including setup and breakdown, because that would get me most evenings. I could kind of go, yeah, by the time I stop at 9:00, I'd have the mental ability to play it, because the time when you play the game is also important. And by the time I'm sitting down and I set up those bigger box games, it's after 10, by which point I'm my brain is fried, so I'm not going to do that. And I guess I do like minis in that 3D sense, but 5 minis in a game would be enough. Just something that adds to the visual aspect of it without it kind of overtaking where you've got hundreds of minis with a game. I don't need that.
That's just assisting the theme, isn't it? Reinforcing the theme, I think.
Yeah.
Minis do that without being just bling. If they do add that extra.
And Like Anita, I always quote Anita, and you've heard this tons of times, Michael. She always is like, Forbidden Island is like close to the perfect game because it goes back into the box as you play it. So basically, as the island sinks, you're putting all the tiles back in the box, and by the time the game's over, you just put the lid on. And you're like, I'm done.
Well, that's what you do with Aleph Null, because you have to deconstruct your starting deck, and the cards that you just sacrifice go back in the box, and they never come back into play again. So you get that, you see. But I have got a mock-up of Aleph Null, but I've completely changed the theme. So instead of summoning a demon, what you're trying to do is you're a Jane Austen character trying to find a suitor. And so you're whittling away all of the periphery of your society to find your Mr. Darcy. So I should send you the Pride and Prejudice Jane Austen Northanger Abbey version. Michael can go for the demon summoning, and you can tell me. It'd be interesting to see whether you get different feelings simply because the theme is different.
Yeah. Well, I have 3 daughters in the house.
So you should have the demon summoning one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just know like they would be more attracted to that theme.
But I'm thinking from a play perspective, the urgency you get with one theme compared to the I need to make sure I find Mr. Right. They're very different approaches to how you make your decisions, I think. And the consequences of failure aren't the same with the different themes. The psychology there of, how you feel about, missing out on Mr. Darcy because of whatever, as opposed to being condemned to eternal damnation and punishment because you didn't have enough blood or you ran out of magical power or whatever it was. So
I don't know, man. For that era of history, being condemned to spinsterhood was, pretty much the same. Well, I've just realised that I have been playing solo games since I was a kid, and not realising it.
That's not called a. Oh, we see. Sorry.
Yes.
Thought you could talk about something else.
No. I'm going to change your name to Filthy Tony in a minute.
I was talking about dice cricket.
Actually, I played dice football a lot as a kid, so there you go. Or dice FA Cup. But yeah, like the Fighting Fantasy books, the Lone Wolf books, Steve Jansen's Sorcery. These are a big part of my childhood, and do you know what? I wouldn't actually mind going back and trying some of the Lone Wolf books again because they were really good.
Lone Wolf, and for me, it was also I can't remember. There was the ninja themed ones that I loved. Still have holiday memories being in Gorey in County Wexford and like going, are we going shopping? Are we going shopping? And I'd run to the bookshop to buy a copy. But actually, so a bit later for me, Space Hulk, the solo rules in that, and I think some on BGG people have released kind of like fine-tuned rules. I love that. So there's tension in that game, Tony, because there's the uncertainty of the mounting doom of the what are they called in the game?
Necromorphs?
No. Gene Stealers are like racing towards you in this cramped space, and like the action economy of like to turn takes an action like 90 degrees. So the fact that you're like turning, they're moving closer, you're turning, they're moving closer, and you're going, oh my god, and then your gun jams, like those little things in that game I love. And I rebought the game recently and sat down and it was just transported back to my teen years. Like to me it's not an overly complex game, very simple actions, but just the flavor of the game comes out so well. And I think solo works for that because you again, like you're saying, you feel alone. It's like we're this lone, in that case you're a lone squad. It'd be interesting to try and do it as a kind of a lone Terminator trying to survive, but then kind of balancing out what the player can do is important. But that's I suppose close to like a perfect game actually in terms of that experience. Have you? I'm sure you've both played Space Hulk at some point.
Yeah.
I've not actually. I kind of missed the Hero Quest, Space Crusade, Space Hulk thing. I played the early Games Workshop stuff like Blockmania, being a massive 2000 fan, and Judge Dredd the board game, and then kind of missed all of the other stuff because we were moving on to Diplomacy and Risk and Blood Royale and role. We did loads and loads of role playing in the mid to late 80s, and it was insane. We did live role playing as well. We worked with a guy that did live role playing in the Forest of Dean, and we were monsters quite regularly. And he used to pay us in beer and free food, and we just got to dress up and beat people who were paying money for the privilege, which sounds like what you find in London now, but then it was in the Forest of Dean.
Actually, Yon reminded me, if we're going to talk Games Workshop and solo, Chainsaw Warrior.
I was going to get to that.
Go ahead.
Well, it's like, yeah, that was like the first pure solo game that I had, like kind of box game, I think, that I ever bought. And it was brutal. But again, it was, I mean, some of it was probably a bit too random by today's standards. But the feeling of dread that you get when you play that game was pretty incredible.
It's interesting. You've been mentioning, you've been telling us about the games, and they've all been referencing the fact that you picked them up when you were younger. There is obviously, when you grow up, children do spend quite a lot of time in their own company. And seriously, how much of the solo game is kind of transporting you back to that feeling where you are experiencing something that is yours, that is not for anybody else? It's like you've done something that no one else has done, and there's a feeling of that exclusivity, I suppose. Is there a nostalgia? Is there some sort of
no? No, I get what you're saying. I think part of it is one, I'm just too disorganized to plan in advance to get people around to play games. So it's kind of too late by the time I say Michael will know, like 9 o'clock, I'll go, oh, does anyone up for a game?
It's just like, I'm getting ready for bed at that time. I'm old.
Yeah, so because I have a kind of family, and by the time we sort out dinner and get everyone sorted, it's a bit later. And so at home, it's just the kind of games I like that maybe have a fantasy theme or minis and stuff my family members aren't that interested in, so I just play them on my own. They're the kind of two main reasons. And I don't have anyone going rolling their eyes at what you're doing, which that's probably the recurring theme in my life, like with books and comics and role-playing games. It's like I don't need that anymore.
I think my perfect solo game would be card based, not because it's portable, but I just like the process of processing cards. I mean, my love of Magic the Gathering and things like that from my past. I just like them as a component in games, and I like a game to be 15 minutes for me because it fits in nicely. I do. Sometimes I look back on my day and I think, how the hell did I manage to fit 16 hours worth of stuff into a 12-hour available space? I do an awful lot in a day, so the ability to just duck out for 10 minutes and just get a distraction. It's like when you're working in front of sort of screens closely, they recommend that every 20 minutes you just look up and look outside and change your focus from a close to a distant focus for a minute, and then go back to, and it just helps your physical sort of well-being and your psychological well-being just by just changing that focus. And I think sometimes just being able to go, right, focus on a solo game, 15 minutes, done. Right, I lost. Never mind, I'll come back to it later on and I'll do something else now. I like that because I have so many other things going on that it's nice to feel like I'm fitting something meaningful into the little gaps between, they're the little stones that fill up the gaps between all the big stones of your day.
I think that's probably a good place to bring things to a close, to be honest, unless Rory, you've got more points that you'd like to throw out.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, what would your solo, like what would you need in a solo game for it to appeal?
I think it's going to have to be something. Yeah, like 6 or 7 people also at the table. You know, we could be playing some sort of, I don't know, multiplayer, solitaire thing. I don't know, something like Agricola. That'll be fine.
Not a multiplayer solitaire, you buffoon.
No, I know.
Unbelievable statement.
If anything, yeah, that's one of the most nasty cutthroat games I've ever played in my life.
It's not the cutthroat. It's about being aware of what other people are doing. The important thing of a game like Agricola, not just Agricola, games of that style are about getting into the timing groove.
Yeah.
People often refer to it as doing something that no one else is doing. And in order to do that, you have to pay attention to what other people are doing. And being opportunistic sometimes, but making sure that you are staying away from what everyone else is fighting over. Don't have a problem with solo games, of course, unless you have an automa that's trying to ruin your plans for you.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I'm always going to keep trying them. I've tried the Villages one recently, which actually I really enjoy, and I'm not sure what itch it seems to scratch. You know, maybe it's the I feel like I'm making progress as I go through the game. I feel like the countess, the AI I'm playing against actually has some level of, there's a little bit of randomness in there, a little bit of life, I guess, as opposed to just like a pre-prescribed list of things that they are always going to do. Like, yeah, they're just following a pathway, but sometimes you'll be surprised by something. Same with Oh My Goods, the Revolt in Longsdale. I know I said at the start of this, oh, I'm Michael and I don't like solo games, but there are obviously a few things out there that I do enjoy. I think I do more enjoy games that happen to have a solo mode, maybe because my solo plays of those will enhance or develop my skills in the full, like the multiplayer version of the game. Like you were saying earlier with Brisbane Reno, Rory. So yeah, maybe that's the route I should stick to. I'll still try the odd, specifically solo game that's thrown out to me. But I'm also sort of like happy to have solo modes in multiplayer games. And, I'm also happy to play like, solo versions of apps or whatever. Like Mike mentioned on there, it's like, he likes playing Ticket to Ride, Splendor, and Terraforming Mars on like Steam or his phone. It's still solo gaming. You're still playing a game on your own. And it's still entirely viable and still completely legit. I think there's a big world that we all get to pick bits out that we really enjoy.
Mike, would you consider both of those games, are they tableau building?
Villages. Villages definitely is.
And Oh My Goods, I can't remember.
Oh My Goods, yeah. Maybe I just like tableau building, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Guilty as charged. You get to do it
on your own, yeah.
Get full control of my world.
Play 3 tableaus twice a day for a week.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Tony, thank you so much. It is much appreciated having you on. And it's been lovely. Oh, we did have, Jos did just quickly mention, try Under Falling Skies, Michael. Printer, when you add ink to your ink cartridge to your printer, a couple of dice and some counters. That's a newer from Czech Games edition, that there is a full print and play on their website that Paul Grogan has been extolling the merits of since the beginning of time. But yeah, dude, thank you. It has been a lot of fun, as always, with your 19 name changes. Bless you, bless you. Yes, I know that we don't have an S in this year, but there is the Gathering of Chums, which hopefully I will get to see you at, which would be a lovely thing.
That would be lovely.
It would be good times. And I guess Rory can come as well if he wants to.
If he wants to, yeah, bring the family. There's lots of lovely places to walk around here. It is nice.
It'll be good times. So if people do want to find you online, Tony, how can they do so?
Well, Surprise Stare Games is the company that I I'm involved with sometimes, letting Alan do all the work. That's www.surprisestaregames.co.uk. I am Tony at surprisestaregames.co.uk, or you can see me every day on Board Game Geek at the Every Man Needs a Shed blog. It is
always a good read.
Tomorrow's is got some bad language in it as well, but then I am talking about.
Is that like a selling point?
Well,
or a warning? It sounded like a selling point.
I did have one chap geek mail me and tell me that he was never going to buy any of my games, and he was selling all the games of mine that he had because my repeated use of terrible words was offending his Christian sensibilities. And surprisingly, I was very courteous and said, "That's fair enough, mate. I'm really sorry that it's upset you, but sometimes I have a good day and sometimes I have a bad day. When I have a bad day, sometimes it just means I express myself in the way that I do. It's my blog. I've been sanctioned for it by BGG sometimes, but it's
true.
It's my good side. It's my bad side. It's my creative side. It's my stupid side. It's everything. It's Tony's diary, basically. So every man needs a shed.
Yeah, and 7 million Snowdonia promos as well.
Oh, yeah.
All dotted throughout it. We, of course, can be found at wearehubgames.com. We are Hub Games across all of the socials, be it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, the whole nine yards. TikTok, probably. I don't know. But probably going to start TikTok at some point. Or I'll just ask my friend Matt and say, what's the next big social media thing that I need to jump on and just like get, cut to that instead. We'll see. We are going to be doing... I just noticed what you've done, Rory. Screw you.
I was waiting to see how long it would take. I was going to write the real.
We will be back, of course, next week. Same bat time, same bat channel at 7 o'clock UK time, 2 o'clock for the East Coast of the States and wherever else you are on the planet. Do keep an eye out on the Facebook and Twitter and stuff as well, because we are going to be doing some changes over the next days and weeks, which will involve a lot of stuff like live plays. So yeah, if there's anybody who's interested in signing up to come and play things like Combo Clash or anything with us online, do give us a shout because it'd be lovely. Tony, we'll see you later. Rory, I'll probably see you tomorrow. And this is where we now wave and say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Goodbye.